Welcome to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brecheen.
3, 2, 1, we're recording. Hi, everyone. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm your host, Lee Brecheen. I hope everybody's having a great Monday morning or Monday afternoon or Monday night whenever you're getting this show. Hope everybody, again, had a great weekend. I know it's cold, but you can tell it's that Christmas weather coming, man. It's good weather. I like it when it's close to Christmas time, when it's cold, and it's pretty good stuff. We're going to talk today in our show about the high school playoffs. We're going to talk about the games that were played this past weekend, some of the upsets and some of the close games in Class 1A to 5A, and also, Class Division 1 all the way to Division 4 on the private side. We're going to talk about all those teams and all those games that were played this past weekend. And also, we're going to talk about the matchups coming up for Louisiana for the playoffs, which is going to be pretty exciting. There's going to be some really good games again, obviously, to get to the Dome. On one side of the bracket, on the public school side, there's still a couple of more playoff games to be played before it's announced. And on the private side, a lot of teams will be punching their ticket to the state championship game after this Friday night. So we're going to be talking about that. But let's go ahead and start the show and go talk about Class 1A. And look, later in the show, we're going to talk LSU basketball, which is a sport, I love basketball too. And we're going to talk about LSU's basketball game Sunday night against Louisiana Tech. I had a chance to watch the game like a lot of the listeners. And there's some positive stuff with LSU basketball, with the talent on the team, the depth, the potential of this team is going to be phenomenal, especially as a shooting team. And I know everything else is going to come later. If you're a basketball fan, you know what I'm talking about. All the chemistry, the young guys getting experience, the defense, the rebounding. Everything improves as time goes on. Some things they won't be able to do. Every team's not going to be perfect. But, this is a team that has a chance to be really special, come tournament time. And actually, by the time they get to the SEC conference, they have a chance to have really great chemistry and a lot of depth. Let's go and get started in Class 1A for high school playoffs. Kind of recapping the weekend here for Class 1A. There were some great games. I think one of the greatest games in Class 1A in the whole state was Centerville High School beating Oberlin in 2 overtimes. Centerville's a team that not a lot of people talk about. It's in the metro area of Lafayette. They have a lot of talent. I've had a chance to see Centerville play, and Oberlin's always got a good team, out of the Lake Charles area. But they won 42-40. I thought that was one of the better games in the whole bracket. And a good game, another good game was Logansport, who I've always talked about on this show, on the podcast. Out of the Shreveport area, Logansport had a big win over West St. John. These two teams have played 2 or 3 times in the playoffs in the last 5 years. But Logansport is the dark horse to make the Superdome. Grand Lake is having a phenomenal season. The best season in their young chapter, beating Delhi 36-6. I thought that was pretty impressive. And East Iberville is very close to trying to get to their first state championship game. They beat Slaughter High School out of the Zachary area. And Oak Grove, they keep winning. They score 55 and beat East Beauregard. Homer, dominant in their win. They're getting close to possibly, again, punching a ticket if they can continue to win. They beat Block 42-0. That was probably the most impressive win in Class 1A. And White Castle, they were in the Superdome 2 years ago and did a great job as a runner-up to Oak Grove, actually last year. So they got a good team back. Go on to Class 2A. Which is, it's got a ton of talented teams. And one of the games of the weekend was Mangum coming back to beat Kentwood in overtime. Kentwood's got a good young team. Mangum's very talented. It's a team that I've picked to go to the Superdome. Port Allen was the upset probably of the weekend. Port Allen around Baton Rouge beat Faraday, the defending state champion in Class 2A from 2019. Port Allen's, I'm still in shock, man. These guys beating a Faraday team that was poised to maybe even go back to the state championship game this year. This is, I would say, the biggest win in the history of Port Allen High School that I can remember. They were good back in the early 2000s, but they never did have a big playoff win like this, especially against one of the top teams in the state. Laurelville keeps winning, beating Rose Pine, a good Rose Pine team out of the Lake Charles area. Kinder beat a very good Avoyles team, 28-22. And here's probably the best scoring game of the weekend in any classification. General Trask out of Lake Providence around the Monroe area beat North Caddo from the Shreveport area in 2 overtimes, 56-54. And look, I've had a chance to see North Caddo play, and they are loaded with talent. I'm very impressed by General Trask. They've been the Cinderella team all year long in the Monroe area. They started the season off beating Evangel Christian out of Shreveport. Amite is coming on strong. They beat Red River, a good Red River team out of Coshada. Red River lost to Amite 33-7. This is impressive. Amite, I've seen Amite play in Red River. Amite's got a lot of talent again this year. In St. Helena, super talented beat Bunkie. I thought this was a very good game, 14-7. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Class 3A, 4A, and 5A over the weekend, some of the good games. And then again, after that, we're going to talk about the matchups in the semifinals and quarterfinals for the public side and private side of these high school playoffs for this coming Friday. We're going to talk about the matchups, who's going to play who. And then later in the show, we're going to talk about LSU basketball, their game against Louisiana Tech, who's got a pretty good team, by the way. We'll talk about that as well. We'll be right back. Listen, whatever you're driving right now, Tommy Harvey wants it. Bring it in to Harvey Subaru, Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City, or John Harvey Toyota. They're paying big bucks for all trades right now. They'll cut you a check right there. Tell them Lee sent you. Welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm your host, Lee Brecheen, and we're talking about the high school playoffs, talking about this past Friday night, some of the top games, and just kind of recapping the games. And then in the future segments in this show, we're going to talk about the playoffs and who's going to play who next. So Class 3A, we're going to continue on Class 3A. One of the top games of the week in Class 3A was Jennings and Lutcher. 50-49. Jennings beats Lutcher. Wow. Lutcher's got a very talented young team that's come on, and it's really tough. It's tough to see a team lose like this. It really is. Just like North Caddo in Class 2A. It's incredible, man. Almost 100 points scored, 99 points scored in this high school game. Jennings, they've got a team that believes. They're trying to get back to the Superdome. They're trying to win the state championship for longtime coach Rusty Phelps. Church Point beat a very talented Bruley. Madison Prep beat a very talented Donaldsonville. St. James beat a talented Sterlington out of Monroe, and St. Martinville beat a very talented Green Oaks. I hated to see Green Oaks lose one of the best teams in the history of the school, I think. That tells you the type of talent St. Martinville has. Union Parish beat a very talented Booker T. Washington. And look, in Class 2A, I didn't mention it, but Manny won a game again without even playing for the second week in a row. South Plaquemines forfeited the playoff game because of COVID-19. Sorry for you guys at South Plaquemines. Sorry that happened. I mean, there's a lot of that's seems like there's a team every week that can't play. It's unfortunate. But Manny is going to be probably the most well-rested team in Class 2A in the whole playoffs. Injury-wise, they'll be as healthy as anybody in the state once they play this week. Hopefully they'll get to play this week. But in 3A, it's going to be interesting. This is some talented teams that are left. And let's continue to Class 4A. Karen Crow beat a very talented DeRidder. I was a big DeRidder fan. I still am. I think DeRidder, Coach Parmley, is doing an incredible job. Karen Crow won 42-7. Karen Crow's got a lot of talent. Their season started off this year beating West Monroe, shutting West Monroe out, which was very impressive. Eunice shut out a very talented Belle Chase. That's impressive. I've watched both of these teams play. Eunice has their quarterback back for their fourth year as a starter. They have basically 10 starters back for their fourth year. This is a very experienced Eunice team. Edna Carr put up 70 points against Estruma. I'm just glad Estruma got to the playoffs again after several years of not making it. But Edna Carr, 70 points is something that's not really a shock to me because they're capable of scoring that every week. Minden beat a very talented Leesville 21-14. And probably the most impressive win in Class 4A was Neville beating Westgate 53-34. Westgate, I had them going to the Superdome, actually. Not winning it all, but getting to the Superdome. But what Neville has really, really come on. It's one of those high school teams that they start the season, they're okay, they're young. They're going to get better here on offense, they're going to get better there on defense, and they've become that team that now has a chance to go to the Superdome. They got to keep winning, but this was a huge win over Westgate. Plaquemine, the surprise team of 4A, beat a very talented Huntington of Shreveport. You've heard me talk about Huntington and Shreveport, tons of talent. And take your hats off to the coaches at Huntington. One of their greatest seasons ever. Plaquemine is a very young team, just like Neville, very talented and young. It's going to be interesting to see if they can go much further, Plaquemine High School, but they have really had a great year. Tioga beat a very talented North DeSoto, coached by Dennis Dunn, the former Louisiana College head coach, the former Evangel Christian head coach. Tioga has been through a lot this year with the hurricane. They had, a lot of their families had, lost homes from the hurricane and were affected through COVID. And so Tioga, they've probably been through more than any team in Class 4A off the field, as a team. And their quarterback, Blake McGahee, is incredible, and they've got incredible players. Tioga's a dark horse. They're trying to get to their first state title game in years. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Class 5A, and then we're going to go over Division 1, 2, 3, and 4 from this past weekend. Again, we're going to still have to talk about the matchups for this weekend coming up for high school football for the playoffs, and then we're going to talk LSU basketball. We'll be right back. Looking for a used car? Harvey Autos has 3 dealerships, which means 3 times the used vehicles. They've got everything from fuel-efficient compacts to luxury models, even hybrids, and certified pre-owned with a warranty. Check out John Harvey Toyota, Harvey Subaru, or Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City. Welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm your host, Lee Brecheen. In Class 5A, we're going to go ahead and talk about this past weekend of football games in the playoffs, Acadiana had a very impressive, what's new? A very impressive win over East Ascension out of Baton Rouge, 42-14. Wow, that was just, people don't realize how good East Ascension is, and to beat them 42-14 was super impressive. Ash High School, Alexandria High School, had a big win over a talented Houghton, 38-6. Destrehan beat a very talented Dutchtown 20-10. Dutchtown gave Destrehan all they wanted that night. They came close. Dutchtown, their magical season is over, losing to Destrehan, but that was a very good performance by Dylan Sampson, their running back. He was phenomenal. He's only a junior. East St. John had a close win over John Ehret, 19-17. Mandeville beat a very talented Lafayette High. I like Mandeville's team, the Skippers. I've liked them for 2 years. Devin Tott, their quarterback's got a lot of ability. They got Caden Costas, one of the best kickers in the state. They have one of the best defenses in the state that nobody talks about at Mandeville. My team to win it all in Class 5A, Ruston, beat Ponchatoula 42-26. A very talented Ponchatoula. Probably one of Hank Turney's most talented, if not the most talented team he's ever had at Ponchatoula. West Monroe, who's had a tough season, kind of like Tioga, off the field with COVID cases, missing a bunch of games. Man, you can't count those Rebels out. They beat Central, a very good Central team, 27-7. These are two programs that have played in the playoffs 3 of the last 6 years. And West Monroe wins 27-7. You can never count those guys out. Zachary beat a very talented New Iberia. I thought this was New Iberia's best team in over 15 or 20 years, maybe even longer. Very good job by Zachary Broncos. Eli Holstein had a great game, and Chris Hilton, and they've got a very young defense that's really come on in offense. And Zachary, they haven't played a lot of games. Very, very similar to West Monroe. They missed a lot of games because of COVID-19. They had a lot of kids test and over the season, and this just goes to show you got to take your hat off to these coaches at West Monroe and Zachary by just being able to get things back to normal without a lot of games. They've missed, between the two of the teams, they've missed about 8 games this year, which is very impressive. We're going to talk about Division I on the private side. Catholic High School, who I picked to win it all, beat a very good Archbishop Rummel 42-35. Rummel's probably the story of the year in Class 5A for the private side. They lost 17 starters from last year. 12 of those guys signed college scholarships for football. It's incredible what Rummel did this year. Coach Monica did a phenomenal job, Coach Nick Monica at Rummel. He's one of the great young coaches in the state. Brother Martin beat Jesuit 36-34. The Jesuit Blue Jays came really close to winning this. Brother Martin's been number 1 all year long in Class 5A on the private side. Brother Martin, the Crusaders, this is just a team that I guess it's their destiny to try and get to the Superdome, to the state title game in many, many years. I like C.E. Bird. I think Bird out of Shreveport's having they're showing everybody they're the real deal. They beat a very talented St. Aug, 31-14. I really like Bird's chances of getting to the Superdome. I predicted them to get to the Superdome with Catholic High about a month ago. And John Curtis, very young team, one of JT's younger teams that he's had in the last 10 years, beat a very talented Scotlandville 34-14. You can never count out John Curtis. I don't care how young they are. I don't care how much talent they're replacing. They've had to replace a 4-year starting quarterback this year. Their whole front seven on defense, most of their defense graduated, and half of their O-line and half of their offensive skill players. And all they do is just win. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Division 2, 3, and 4 in the playoffs, and then we're going to talk about matchups for the playoffs, and then later in the show, LSU basketball. We'll be right back. So, hey, guys, just wanted to take a minute to tell you about Harvey Autos. If you need a new or used car, there's 3 great dealerships right here worth checking out. John Harvey Toyota, Harvey Subaru, and Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City. Low prices, honest people. Tell them Lee sent you. Welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm Lee Brecheen, your host. I want to mention a team we didn't mention in 3A, Class 3A. Gina had a big win over Joel Sumner. It's a baseball score, 8-0. And in 4A, Warren Easton beat Landry Walker, and they're advancing. But we're talking now in this segment, Division 2. All these games were quarterfinal games this past weekend on the private side from Division 1 to Division 4. So all these teams will be punching a ticket to the Superdome after this coming Friday. Again, on the public side, from 1A to 5A, they have an extra game to play before it's decided who's going to play in the state championship game. It's always been that way. But Division 3, Division 2, and Division 4 we're going to have in this segment. Division 2, De La Salle actually got a great game out of Turlings Catholic. They beat Turlings 28-17. St. Thomas More beat a very pesky, tough team in Parkview Baptist 35-0. I've got St. Thomas More winning it all, but I picked them about a month ago. University Lab beat a very good Vandy Catholic. I mean, University Lab could play spoiler here and try and get to the Dome. I mean, they've got a young team out of Baton Rouge. Not as good as they were 3 years ago, but still a very talented team. Andy Martin is doing a heck of a job with this University High team out of Baton Rouge, the Opelousas native head coach. Andy Martin's a great guy, does a good job at U High, where he replaced Coach Mahaffey, who's now at Walker High School. Continuing on in Division 3, the Cinderella season's over for Archbishop Hannon. They lost to E.D. White 16-13. E.D. White came out of nowhere to have a great year this year. Lafayette Christian ended a Cinderella season for Baton Rouge Episcopal 14-12. This was a very close game. I mean, this game could have gone any one way or the other by a minute or two in the game. If Episcopal had several chances to win this game and put it away, but Lafayette Christian was able to finish off Episcopal of Baton Rouge, who had one of their greatest seasons ever. They beat Episcopal 14-12. I thought Episcopal had a great game. I think they really played as hard as they could. They didn't play as well as they could in the last 5 minutes of the game, which cost them the win, but it just wasn't meant to be, but the team can hold their heads up and be proud of what they did in 2020. Again, Travis Bourgeois was undefeated during the season. Playing Lafayette Christian's like playing a mini high school NFL team, and they were able to duke it out with them for most of the game and just came up short. Notre Dame High School out of Crowley had a big win over a very talented Ascension Episcopal, 43-14. I had a chance to watch this game. Notre Dame just basically shut down the run game of Ascension Episcopal like they do with a lot of programs. Notre Dame's always got a great defense. One of the sleeper players, by the way, for Notre Dame on defense is Wesley Mays that came over from St. Louis High School, who's a defensive end linebacker. They've got some very good defensive players at Notre Dame. probably as many as 5 kids that could sign scholarships to a lot of smaller schools. Newman held on and beat Catholic of New Iberia 14-7. This was a closer game than I thought it would be. And actually, we're going to have Coach Watney on from Catholic of New Iberia this Friday. He's going to be our guest this Friday to talk football and talk about Catholic and New Iberia. Newman has a chance to continue on there in their game away from trying to go to a state championship game. St. Charles Catholic. St. Charles Catholic head coach Frank Monica gets a big win over Dunham. St. Charles has had a tough season, and they're able to stay in this. Division 4. The team that nobody's really talked about statewide, maybe locally in Shreveport, but not statewide, is Calvary Baptist. Beat a very good Catholic of Point Capee, 48-16. It was one of the best teams at Catholic Point Capee. Coach David Semino did a great job this year. Hold your heads up high, kids, again. But Calvary Baptist just has too much talent. The quarterback, Landry's going to be a heck of a quarterback. He's got another year left. Ouachita Christian beat a very good and talented young Country Day. Southern Lab, probably the game of the week in Division 4. Southern Lab beat Cedar Creek 26-22. Cedar Creek had a great season. And again, they did a phenomenal job. Those kids had an upset last week in the playoffs to continue on, and then they barely lost to Southern Lab, who's very talented, by the way. But one of the story Cinderella seasons is Cedar Creek's season ends, but they had a phenomenal year. And the last game to talk about in Division 4 was for me and Catholic, and quarterback Drew Leger that you heard on our podcast about 3 weeks ago had a phenomenal game again. They beat a very, very talented Riverside Academy, who's had a Cinderella team this year, and there was a lot of tough losses for a lot of good programs. That's what's going to happen every week in the playoffs in Louisiana when you get down to the second round and the third round, and you get to the quarterfinals, and then we're getting to the semifinals. There's going to be some tough losses. You got a lot of good teams. Somebody's got to lose. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about our key matchups this week for the high school playoffs in Louisiana. Again, we get to the quarterfinals, and then we get to the semifinals. On the private side, on the public side, we've got 2 more games left before it's decided. But we're going to talk about that and much more later in the show. We're going to talk about LSU basketball. We'll be right back.
Parents, are you looking for advice on getting your high school athlete recruited by the right college? Lee Brecheen is your answer. Lee has been doing it for over 30 years. He knows the ropes, and more importantly, he knows the people. Lee offers turnkey service from evaluation, creating highlight tapes in the correct format, and complete guidelines for effective communication with the schools. No matter the sport, girl or boy, no matter what grade your child is in, let Lee Brecheen help match your child to the right college fit. Go to our website, lafootballmagazine.com, and get connected today.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm your host, Lee Brecheen. I hope you're enjoying the show. Hope everybody's having a great Monday. Some people might catch this show on Tuesday of this week. We will have a show Tuesday. And Tuesday, we're going to talk about the second team, All-Louisiana team defense from the south part of the state. And then Thursday, we're going to talk about the third team, South offense. And then the following week, we'll have the third team, All-South defense. There's so much to talk about. Wednesday, we're going to have a guest that's going to be on, a former punter from USL, which is now ULL football. We'll talk about our punting guest as we go on later in the week. And then Friday, again, we're going to have Coach Watney join us from Catholic and New Iberia this Friday. Very excited to talk to those 2 gentlemen this week. And then today, we're talking to high school playoffs. And we're going to talk about in this segment, we're going to talk about teams that are going to be playing this weekend to try and get to the Superdome or to trying to continue to win to get to a state championship game on the Class 1A side. But let's go ahead and talk about 1A. Man, it gets tough. There's some good games. Every game's just going to be, it's really hard to call these games. Even though you can pick winners, 3 weeks ago like I did, like a lot of people, you can do your brackets and you can pick, and you can see these teams play over and over and over like I have, and you can see, it's tough for me because when I look at these teams that are playing each other in the quarterfinals in Class 1A, it's hard to pick because I've seen both teams play. And the game of the week is Oak Grove against Logansport. Oak Grove, it's going to be a tough game. I mean, Oak Grove's who I picked to win it all in Class 1A again, the defending champion in 2019. They're built like a 5A team, not like a 1A team. That's why if my listening audience doesn't really know about Oak Grove, they got the size of a 5A team and the skill players of a 4A team. But Logansport's kind of the same. They got the size of basically a 4A team and the speed and athletic ability of a 5A team. These are two teams that are not normal Class 1A programs. One team is very senior laden, Oak Grove. The other is very young in Logansport. It's going to be a tough game. Oak Grove, this is not a guarantee to win this game, even though I picked them to win it all. But this is the quarterfinals. So whoever wins this game would have to win one more game, like all of these teams would have to win one more game to get to the semifinals. And on the same side of the bracket, Homer of Shreveport area is playing White Castle. Again, same thing. I've seen both of these teams play. You've got two senior-laden teams, except White Castle's got a little bit more younger talent. White Castle's been to the Dome a lot in the last 10, 15 years. Homer's trying to get there. This is going to be a toss-up game. It really is. It's going to come down to the wire, both of these games. On the other side of the bracket, you've got the same thing. You got Grand Lake out of Lake Charles area playing Centerville, which these two teams are evenly matched. Anybody can win. And on the same side of the bracket, you've got Haynesville against East Iberville, which I think East Iberville could beat Haynesville. I really think. I know Haynesville's got more experience in the playoffs than anybody in the bracket. But East Iberville's got a lot of playoff experience, and they're just knocking on that door. I mean, East Iberville's come so close to get to a state title game. Will this be their year? If they can beat Haynesville, then they would have to beat the winner of Grand Lake Centerville, which I think they got a better chance of doing that. If they do beat Haynesville, they got a chance to go to the Dome for the first time. Because I think they would beat Grand Lake or Centerville if they can beat Haynesville, which is going to be a tough task. I was able to see Haynesville play about 2 weeks ago. And Coach Franklin, David Franklin's done a phenomenal job with that program at Haynesville. They are not super deep like they usually are. They're not super big. They don't have anybody like Demetric Evans that played at Georgia and made All-American, played for the Redskins, a big lineman. They don't have any of those. They don't have anybody like Bobby Raytail, that was a great running back in college. But what they do have is some great kids and a great coaching staff at Haynesville, and they got great tradition. But this could go either way. East Iberville's got a chance. In Class 2A, in the quarterfinals, Manny hasn't played in 2 weeks. They're probably the most injury-free team in the whole bracket of any team in Class 2A. They're going to play Amite. That's going to be a great game. Manny, I've picked is winning it all in Class 2A. But they've got to get by Amite. Amite is very talented, Very talented. I mean, before the playoffs started, nobody really talked about Amite much, but I watched Amite play about a month ago. Super talented and very big team. If anybody can match up, this might be the toughest game Manny will have. Even tougher than if they get to the Superdome. But I think Manny will beat Amite, but it's going to be a good game. General Trask is going to play St. Helena Central. That's going to be an incredible matchup as well in Class 2A on the same side of the bracket. Will the Cinderella team of the year out of the Monroe area win? I don't know. It'll be close. St. Helena is very talented. Both of these teams are built like 4A teams, not 2A teams. St. Helena's a little bigger. General Trask has got some great skill talent, and they believe. On the other side of the bracket, you have one of the great teams having a Cinderella story year in Laurelville, taking on a very good program in Kinder. You would think Kinder would win, but if you've watched Laurelville like I have, don't count them out. This could be their year. This could be their Cinderella story to get to the Superdome. They need to win this game and another game after that. But in the quarterfinals against Kinder, it's going to be a phenomenal game. This will come down to the wire, too. And then on the same side of the bracket, you have Port Allen, who had the biggest upset in high school football in Louisiana this past week, beating Faraday, the state champs in 2A, by the way, in 2019. They're playing Mangum. If they can beat Mangum, that would be the biggest upset again in the week. But don't count Port Allen out. Port Allen, I mean, if you can beat Faraday, you can beat Mangum. But I have Mangum going to the Dome playing Manny. It's shaping up to possibly look that way, but then Mangum, even if Mangum wins this, they'd have to beat Laurelville or Kinder. It's going to be very interesting what happens. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Class 3A, Class 4A, Class 5A, and then we'll get to Division 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the playoffs, and we'll talk about LSU basketball later in the show. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. We'll be right back. Listen, whatever you're driving right now, Tommy Harvey wants it. Bring it in to Harvey Subaru, Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City, or John Harvey Toyota. They're paying big bucks for all trades right now. They'll cut you a check right there. Tell them Lee sent you. Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm your host, Lee Brecheen. This segment, we're going to be talking about Class 3A, 4A, and 5A for the high school playoffs for the quarterfinals. Just so people that are listening don't get confused, I want to just, on the public side of the playoffs, Class 1A to 5A, we're in the quarterfinals, which means they have to go one more game to the semifinals before someone can punch their ticket to the state title game. On the private side, it's the semifinals. So they're basically going to, this Friday, you're going to know who's going to the Superdome on the private side of the playoff bracket from Class 1A, 2A, Division 1, 2, 3, and 4, as they call it. So it's going to be interesting. We're going to continue on with Class 3A. Jennings, plays Madison Prep. This is going to be a tough game for Jennings. Jennings doesn't match up well with Madison Prep. Madison Prep is built like a 5A team. They're 300 pounds on D-line and O-line, and their quarterback, Chris, is one of the best quarterbacks in the state. He can gun it. He can run it. He'll be one of the top recruits in Baton Rouge next year. He's only a junior. Remember that name, Chris. He's a phenomenal quarterback. He's going to be tough for Jennings. Madison Prep just beat a very talented Donaldsonville. But Jennings just beat a very talented Lutcher. On the same side of the bracket, you have St. James, the defending state champ in Class 3A in 2019, playing a very good Church Point. Church Point beat Bruley this past weekend, which they've shut them out, which was incredible. And St. James is trying to get back to defend their state title this year. I think St. James has the edge, but Church Point is a very tough team. I've had a chance to see them and St. James. These are going to be two phenomenal games in Class 3A. On the other side of the bracket, you have Lake Charles College Prep, who I predicted to go to the Superdome to play St. James. They're playing Gina. Gina's a very senior-laden team that's really, really talented. They really believe. Lake Charles College Prep is also a senior-laden team. Lake Charles College Prep has 5A skill talent, and actually they're better than some 5A teams. Same thing with St. James on the other side of the bracket. Same thing with Madison Prep. Gina's going to give Lake Charles College Prep all they can handle, but I think it's going to be tough for them to beat them. On the same side of the bracket, you've got St. Martinville coming off a huge win over Green Oaks, at Shreveport, playing Union Parish. I think this is the game of the week in Class 3A. These are two teams in 3A that are built like 5A teams. They're both huge on the O&D lines. They're both super talented skill-wise. It's going to be tough to call a winner here. I mean, these two teams are phenomenally talented. Seen both of them play. Union Parish is a little bigger in size, not much. But I think it's going to be one of the great games of the weekend in Class 3A is St. Martinville, Union Parish. We're going to go to 4A, Class 4A, for the quarterfinals. Karen Crow is going to play a very good Plaquemine who has shocked everybody by beating Huntington this past week at Shreveport. On the same side of the bracket, Minden is playing a very talented young Neville out of Monroe. Minden is a team I've bragged on all year long out of the Shreveport area. Technically, they're more in Bossier City than they are Shreveport, but the metro area is Shreveport, Minden. Don't count them out. They could upset Neville. They've got the talent to beat Neville. If they believe, they have the size and speed to beat Neville. On the other side of the bracket, you've got Tioga playing Warren Easton, which is going to be very interesting to see how Tioga does this year. They've lost to Warren Easton in the past in the playoffs. Tioga's got this is their best team probably in the history of the program, led by the quarterback Blake McGehee and their star receivers, Chrisman and Lilly at receiver. Phenomenal offense. Eunice on the same side of the brackets playing Edna Carr. This is like a dome game, actually. Eunice won the state championship a couple of years ago. They're playing Edna Carr that's trying to win their 6th state championship in 7 years. This is going to be a great game. Look, don't count Eunice out. I mean, even though I have Edna Carr winning the whole thing in Class 4A, my opponent got beat, Westgate, so there's going to be a different opponent in my predictions here when this is said and done. But I have Edna Carr winning it all again. But, man, Eunice is going to give them all they can handle. We're going to go to 5A for the playoffs for this week. In the quarterfinals, Acadiana is going to play Mandeville. This is the big boy games. Every game here is incredibly difficult. Every team in Class 5A has special teams, size, and speed. There's no weaknesses on all these teams I'm going to mention. And I can pick this team or that team, but every team I'm going to mention in Class 5A is good enough to win a state title. But on one side in the quarterfinals, you have Acadiana playing Mandeville, which is going to be, it's going to go down on the wire. Even though Acadiana has blown a lot of people off the field in 2020, they lost to Catholic High, who's got a chance to win a state championship on the private side of Class 5A. Mandeville's a tough opponent for Acadiana. Mandeville has a very good offense. They can challenge Acadiana's defense, and Mandeville's got a very good defense. that could challenge Acadiana's offense. They don't throw the ball very well, and that could be a bad matchup problem against Mandeville. On the same side of the bracket, Destrehan plays Ruston, probably the game of the week in Class 5A. Destrehan has a great defense. They have an NFL-looking D-line and linebacking core. Ruston, to me, is the most talented team in the state. They're not a high seed, and they proved that by beating Ponchatoula. I've predicted Ruston Zachary in the state championship game. I don't know if it's going to happen, but Destrehan Ruston will go down to the wire. If Destrehan cannot stop Ruston's running game, it'll be a long night. But if anybody can do it, Destrehan can. On the other side of the bracket, Zachary plays a very talented Alexandria High School. Will this be the year? Will this be the year that Thomas Bachman, and as they call it, Ash High School, Alexandria High School out of Alexandria, Louisiana, will this be their year to advance to the semifinals? Because if they can beat Zachary, they would have the best chance in the history of the team, probably, school, to try and get to the state championship game. And Jude Barton, their quarterback's a real deal. Shield Taylor, their tight end's a real deal. Their offensive line, they got a really good defense. And take your hat off to Coach Thomas Bachman. They had to replace Jacoby and Guillory, the All-American D-tackle who's had injuries all year long for LSU, and hope that kid's okay. He came in his first play this year and got hurt against Alabama on the goal line. I hope he's okay because he's going to be a great D-tackle at LSU. But having to replace a guy like that in your star corner and not miss a beat is incredible at Alexandria. Zachary's going to be tough for them. It's going to be tough to stop Zachary. This is going to be a high-scoring game. It's going to be tough for Zachary to stop Alexandria offensively. But it's the game of quarterbacks. Jude Barton against Eli Holstein. You might see 50, 60 points scored in this game. You might see 80 points combined between Jude Barton and Eli Holstein. This is going to be a dogfight. On the same side of the bracket, you got West Monroe playing East St. John, which has had to really earn all their wins. Not that anybody didn't in the playoffs, but they had to come from behind and beat Woodlawn and Baton Rouge in the rain, which they were losing most of the game. Then they had to beat a talented John Ehret, who was the number one team in Class 5A for a long time this past high school season. It's going to be a tough game for the Rebels, but it's also going to be tough for East St. John. East St. John's got a heck of a defense. If it's a dry field, I go with East St. John. If it's not dry, if it's rain and bad weather, I go with West Monroe. But it's going to be a great game. Again, all these games are going to come down to the wire in Class 5A. They're all going to be close. Every team that's left can win a state title. I did predict Ruston to win it all. I'm going to, keep my picks, obviously, from a month ago. But anybody can win this. It's the most difficult class and division to me to win a state championship in Louisiana. It's the Class 5A side of the public school. There's so many great programs. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the private side of the playoffs, which will be the semifinals. Somebody's going to be punching their ticket to the state championship game after this Friday night in Louisiana. We're going to talk about Division 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll be right back. And later in the show, we're going to talk LSU basketball. Looking for a used car? Harvey Autos has 3 dealerships, which means 3 times the used vehicles. They've got everything from fuel-efficient compacts to luxury models, even hybrids, and certified pre-owned with a warranty. Check out John Harvey Toyota, Harvey Subaru, or Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City. Welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm your host, Lee Brecheen. Be sure to go to our website, lafootballmagazine.com, to pick up your North and South copies if you want to use them as a guide for the playoffs or the state championship games. It's a great guide to have. all the teams that we're mentioning today are in that preview magazine. It's a print copy. It's a hardback gloss color copy if you've never seen it before. It's 140 pages of just information out of the you-know-what all over the state. We've got a North copy and a South copy. You can still order those magazines on our website, again, lafootballmagazine.com. You can also order a digital copy on the website. But go to lafootballmagazine.com to get your North and South copies. They came out in September. It's got every high school in it and every college in the state. You might want to use that as a reference to the Southland Conference and the SWAC. It's got a big recruiting section in each magazine, and I hope all our coaches enjoyed it. We mailed one to every high school coach in the state. We're going to continue on for the high school playoffs, talking about our matchups this week for Division I, which in layman terms is Class 5A on the private side of football in Louisiana. This is the semis. So whoever wins these games will go to the Superdome. This is the punch the ticket. Brother Martin and Catholic High is going to play. I've got Catholic High winning the whole thing, but again, like I said in Class 5A on the public side, this could go either way on both of these games. There's only 2 games left to talk about, and then we've got our opponents for the state championship game for this division. Brother Martin, the key to beating Catholic High is they have to be able to run the ball. Jalen Spears is a phenomenal running back. And for them to beat Catholic, they're going to be able to have to throw the ball. They're not a throwing team. Throwing is not really their strength, Brother Martin. Defense and running the rock is their strength. They've got a great senior O-line at Brother Martin. They've got what I would call overachieving, just a bunch of great kids on defense that come up and they hit, and they tough kids. Andrew Lyon, Shashery, a lot of their players. Lambert at DB, the Lambert brothers. I mean, they've got some great players on defense, but they're young on defense. They've got to be able to run the ball. And the key for Catholic is shutting down their run game. And can Brother Martin's defense do it again? Can they shut down a very powerful running game at Catholic? Catholic can rotate 3 or 4 different running backs at any given time. It's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be a close game. Even though I'm picking Catholic to win the state championship, every game's going to be close. It was like that this past weekend. On the other side, C.E. Bird of Shreveport's trying to get to the state championship game, but they've got to go through John Curtis. Even though John Curtis is a young team, they've become a good team over time. They're very young, but they're very talented. They're very well coached. But Coach Suggs is trying to get to that state championship game, and I predicted they would. It's their year. It really is. If there's a program for the last 30 years, it's their year to get to the state championship game. This is it. This is Suggs' chance, I think, as a coach. And I'm pulling for him because he's been there for over 30 years. And I'd like to see him get to a state championship game. Now, John Curtis, what they have to do is control the clock and run the ball. If they do that, they would beat Bird. Bird's going to have to shut down their run game and force Curtis to throw the ball, which that's not what they do. Bird can defend the run. They've got the size and the talent to do it. They're going to have to just show up and do it. And offensively, they're going to have to find ways to score, and they've got the offense to do it. Scotlandville probably had more skill talent on offense than Bird. They actually do. But Bird has a lot of senior talent on the O-line. And they also have a very smart young quarterback, and they also have some very good running backs. I think the running game at Bird's better than Scotlandville. which is going to challenge Curtis a little more. Plus Bird's senior O-line. In Division II, again, there's only 2 games to be played to decide opponents for the state championship game, and that's going to be De La Salle against E.D. White. In the beginning, I predicted De La Salle would play St. Thomas More in the state championship game. I'm still going to say that today. E.D. White's had a great year. Can they beat De La Salle? Sure. Anything's possible in high school football. E.D. White out of Thibodaux. But De La Salle, I think, has a team that's as talented as anyone that you're going to see in Class 4A. On the other side of the bracket, University Lab's going to play St. Thomas More High School. I mean, this is David versus Goliath. This is like David versus Goliath kind of changed around because 3 years ago, St. Thomas More played U-High in the state championship game, and St. Thomas More was the underdog. And they almost beat U-High, who had an NFL team. This year it's the other way around. St. Thomas More has the more talented team. Who's going to win it? I think St. Thomas More is going to win the game. I predicted them to win the state championship again, but you can't count U-High out. I mean, they've really shocked me by what they've been able to accomplish this year. They've really done a phenomenal job. Coach Andy Martin, I said it early in the show. I'm going to say it again. Division III. Again, there's only 2 games. The winners of these games, it's the semifinals. In Division III, will be in the Superdome. You got Newman and Lafayette Christian. I predicted that Newman would beat Lafayette Christian a month ago. I still think Newman will upset Lafayette Christian. It's going to be a great game. Newman just has to have a great game passing, obviously, with Arch Manning. And they have way more than just Arch. They have 4 very good receivers. They have a very good O-line. And they've got a couple of really good running backs. Newman's defense is going to be challenged. That's the key. Lafayette, you've got to outscore Lafayette Christian, basically. And if anybody can do that in Division III, it's Newman. And I give the edge to Arch Manning in that offense to pull it out. Sage Ryan, we don't know if he's going to play or not. I know that he was helped off the field against Episcopal High School. That could play into this. Even if Sage Ryan plays, I had Newman beating him. But Lafayette Christian, do they have more talent? Yes. But Newman as a team is a little better than Episcopal offensively, but not as good as Episcopal defensively. So it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be a close game. Newman barely beat Catholic in Iberia to get to this. On the other side, Notre Dame, the Pios of Crowley, Louisiana. They got to go through St. Charles to get to the Superdome. I've predicted Notre Dame to win it all, to play Newman. But I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a huge task. They got to get through St. Charles, and Frank Monica's got a very talented team. If they can just get things going on offense, they're going to be tough. I mean, St. Charles has enough talent to win this whole thing. It's just they haven't had their offense in balanced throwing and running, and they've got it. They just got to put it together for Coach Monica. It's going to be tough for St. Charles to beat Notre Dame in their defense, and the offense of Notre Dame is very improved. They can throw the ball. I mean, Notre Dame's not a throwing team until this year. I really like this game. It's going to be a great game. And in Division IV, again, only 2 games, semifinals. The winners go to the Superdome for the state title game. On one side is Calvary Baptist playing Southern Lab. 2 talented teams. Southern Lab's very young, by the way. So this would be a bonus year if the Kittens could get to the Superdome this year, because I had them going next year. But I think it's Calvary Baptist's year to go. I do have them going Ouachita Christian. I picked a month ago. with Ouachita Christian winning it all, but Ouachita Christian's got to go through Vermilion Catholic and Drew Leger and Saul Dartez, who's a talented receiver. Vermilion Catholic has a very talented offense. If anybody can get to a high school game this Friday night, you just want to see two teams just fight it out like two heavyweight fighters, go see Ouachita Christian, Vermilion Catholic. Even though I picked Ouachita Christian to win it all, Vermilion Catholic's going to give them all they can handle with Drew Leger, the quarterback, and Saul Dartez and their senior group. It's really a senior team. They're going to be rebuilding after this year, Vermilion. Ouachita Christian's going to still be competing for championships, but for Vermilion's going to be very, very much rebuilding after this year. This is their year to try and get there. Any of these four teams can make it, but I just predicted Calvary Baptist, Ouachita Christian in the end, with Ouachita Christian winning it all because of their experience and the team that they have. I hope everybody enjoyed talking about the playoffs. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to talk LSU basketball. Man, they had a big win over Louisiana Tech. And by the way, Louisiana Tech's very talented. We're going to talk about that too when we come back. So, hey guys, just wanted to take a minute to tell you about Harvey Autos. If you need a new or used car, there's 3 great dealerships right here worth checking out. John Harvey Toyota, Harvey Subaru, and Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City. Low prices, honest people. Tell them Lee sent you. Hi, everyone. I'm Lee Brecheen, your host. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. We're going to talk in this segment LSU basketball. You know, as a basketball fan, growing up my whole life in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, I started following basketball in 1980. That was a good time to follow basketball because in 81, you know, LSU went to the Final Four. They had one of their greatest teams ever, Rudy Macklin, Ethan Martin, Greg Cookie Man Cook, Dale Brown, the head coach, Leonard Mitchell. They had so much talent on that team. It was one of the great teams in the history, I think the greatest team in the history of LSU basketball. You know, they went to the Final Four with John Brady. They had Baby Davis, Garrett Temple, Tyrus Thomas. I had a lot of talent. They lost to UCLA in their first game in the Final Four. Still think the 81 team was the better team. This will be the most talented team since John Brady's Final Four team to lose to UCLA. How good will this team be? Will they be better than John Brady's team that went to the Final Four? I don't know. The one thing that they don't have right now early on is they don't have an intimidator under the basket. They don't have someone that's just that intimidator. But that guy that we haven't seen yet, who I had a chance to watch last year at Georgetown, he becomes eligible next month. His name is Josh Leblanc. He's from Madison Prep in Baton Rouge. He was Gatorade Player of the Year 3 years ago. He was one of the top 25 prospects in the country 3 years ago. LSU lost him to Georgetown. He signed with Georgetown. And I watched Josh LeBlanc play. And let me tell you something. This guy is a incredible, imposing, sculptured, rebounding machine who can shoot and put in a lot of baskets, a lot of misses. He'll be the human vacuum cleaner that LSU needs on the offensive boards. And Sharif O'Neal, who's showing a lot of potential as a rebounder at 6'10". He's going to get better, like Coach Will Wade said. The more Sharif O'Neal plays, the better he's going to get. And I think we're all wanting to see polished players from day one, and that's not how it works with kids. I mean, not everybody is Williamson from Duke. You know, not everybody is Michael Jordan. You know, it's just not everybody's Allen Iverson. You know, you just don't come out first game and be a Hall of Famer. But on that note, Cameron Thomas is one of the top 5 players in the SEC already as a two-guard for LSU at 6'5". They got him 6'4". He's about 6'5". He had 16 points against Louisiana Tech. He's averaging 23 a game. And you throw in Darius Days, who's in better shape at 6'7", about 240 instead of 260, who can shoot the three, by the way. Trendon Watford, I think, is going to be a great player. He's not polished yet, and I keep going to that. I think Will Wade would really love what I'm saying because I'm talking to the fans. Watford shows at times that he's incredible, but he's not there yet. He's only a true sophomore. That's why he came back. It's a good decision not to go to the NBA. But Trendon Watford at 6'8", 245 pounds of granite muscle, shoots like a two-guard, drives to the basket like a small forward, and dribbles the ball like a point guard. Sometimes too much. Sometimes he does it too much, and he dribbles too much sometimes coming down the court. I'd like to see him maybe not do that as much. I know he's trying to show the NBA scouts, but for the team, I'm glad he can dribble, but leave that to the point guards. And I like the young guards. I think Jalen Cook is one of the best freshman guards in the United States. He's going to evolve into a great shooter. He's going to get you baskets. He's going to drive to the basket. He's going to give you great defense. His three's going to improve. Monty Wilkinson's going to be an incredible player as a small forward in this lineup as time goes on. He's a freshman from Las Vegas. Played at Bishop Gorman High School. 6'5", 6'6", 220 pounds, can jump out the gym. Once he gets his shot down, once he gets his experience, look out for this team. And then you look at Charles Manning coming back, who brings energy to the team, who can throw, who can steal balls. He brings energy. And Javonte Smart's improved a lot. He's improved. Now, I thought he had trouble last year trying to do some things. His shooting has improved tremendously. He's become a consistent three-point shooter. He's becoming a better point guard. He's got it. And again, people evolve. They start to become polished. He's still not polished, but he's got a chance to be really good. He was highly recruited. Sometimes you're highly recruited. You're not that full product your freshman year or sophomore year. And I'm glad he came back because he needed to come back. And then Eric Gaines, the freshman from Lithonia, Georgia, is I think he's a great player. I think he's out of control a little bit, but like most young point guards, he's gonna be good. He can shoot. He's aggressive. I like his defense. But, LSU put up 86 points on Louisiana Tech Sunday night. They held Louisiana Tech to 55. They were averaging about 75 points a game. Let me tell you how important this win is. Louisiana Tech starts 4 seniors. LSU's the young team compared to them. Their leading scorer from Port Barry High School, by the way, for Louisiana Tech, Caleb Ledoux, it's probably pronounced Ledoux, was held to 4 points. He was averaging 14 points a game. Jacoby Pemberton, who's a senior guard out of Dallas, 6'5" for Louisiana Tech. He was averaging 12 points a game. He only had 2 points. When you're shutting down the point guard and the two guard for opposing team that are seniors, that's impressive. But Louisiana Tech's got a great young team. They got a chance to win their conference. And this freshman, Kenneth Lofton, he looks like a Charles Barkley in build. He reminds me of the mound to rebound from Auburn back in the day before he was a pro. We all know Charles Barkley from doing NBA shows, but this Kenneth Lofton kid from Port Arthur, Texas, I wonder why LSU didn't recruit him. He's 6'7", 290 pounds. They list him 275. But he's got the hands and the shot of like a two guard. They couldn't stop this guy. 17 points, 12 rebounds, true freshman now. And Tech had some size. I mean, they've got a senior forward, Andrew Garden, who's 6'10", 260. Kenneth Lofton, 6'7", 290, but very, very athletic, by the way, if you didn't watch the game. And they've got a couple of 6'8s, and their guards are like 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". You know, LSU teams in the past would struggle to win this game by 5 points, maybe even lose this game. Is this a Final Four team? I don't know. Final 8? I don't know. Sweet 16 could be. If they keep improving, if Josh Leblanc could be that vacuum cleaner that I think he could be, then they could be a Final Four, Final 8 team. You've got to have that intimidator to rebound the ball. And I think Sharif's getting there, but when Josh LeBlanc plays, I think a lot of LSU fans are going to, whoa. This team's got it. But one of their best players is not playing yet. And they're 10 deep. They could actually go 11 deep. The young center, Josh Gray, is going to be a great player. He's 6'11", about 250, but he's getting some minutes. He's just not there yet. The other center that transferred in from the University of Washington, Penn Johnson, he's got a little work to do. He'll get there, but again, they're playing the whole bench. They played just about everybody on the team last night. And even Andre Hyatt looked good. Even though he only scored 4 points, he made his free throws. He's a good defensive guy. I think this is the first year. A lot of fans don't know this, but he wore his knee brace last year, and he had knee surgery. He was trying to get back to normal, just like football players do. But I don't think fans might realize that he had a knee brace on that slowed him down and trying to get over that knee injury. And he's finally healthy, so this is like resetting for him. This is really like his first year of healthy. I think fans want to see it in the first 2-3 games, but that's not how it works. Give it about 10, 12 games before you even judge Hyatt, who's got a lot of ability, again, once he gets in a groove. But I really like this team a lot. I really do. I think if you get in foul trouble, you've got a bench of 5 players finally. In the past, they didn't have but maybe 7 guys, maybe 8, maybe mostly 7. You've got size. You got potential. You're deep at the 2 guard, small forward positions. You've got enough size, and you've got about 7 shooters. When this is said and done, you got about 7 guys that can shoot. But again, I'm very excited for Will Wade and the basketball team. They play South Florida is their next game. I know they got a game with UNO coming up too. They should win both of those games. Right now they're 3-1. I think they're going to be very good. Cameron Thomas had a quiet 16 points. This kid's incredible, man. I think he's got a chance to be a 20 points a game average kid for the whole year. You know, a lot of people like how he shoots the ball from the 3, but I like how he drives too. I like how it's very easy for him to drive to the basket and make people look not very good. I mean, he's just very high basketball IQ. But this team has got a chance. You know, you got to realize Charles Manning's been out for months. It's his first game back against Tech, and he looked great for his first game back. Here's a kid who's had basically 3 surgeries in about a year or 2. And you really can't fully judge Charles Manning. Again, he's only been back for 1 game since he's healed up. 1 game. It's going to be interesting to see how those Tigers do. It's going to be a great year for them, I think. They might lose a game or 2 here and there. That's what happens in basketball. You're not going to win every game unless you're, you know, like I said, this is not the late Dean Smith with Michael Jordan and James Worthy and all those guys and Daugherty. I mean, this is a good team, but I wouldn't want to play LSU come conference time. But I tell you what, Arkansas is going to be tough. Missouri's going to be tough. Florida's going to be tough. And Kentucky, wow, 1-3. I tell you what, Big Blue Nation's got to be upset like LSU fans in football. 1-3 Kentucky, and they didn't just lose to Georgia Tech the other night. They got run out of the gym. They had lost by 12. It's going to be interesting to see. This might be the year LSU beats Kentucky, has a chance to sweep all these guys. They got a chance. But again, I like Arkansas a lot. Arkansas is going to be the team that's going to be tough in the West. Auburn's not as good. They're going to be good, but not as good as they've been. Ole Miss and State should not be where LSU's at, but they've got good coaches. Texas A&M's got a team, but they're not where LSU's at on depth and talent. It's going to be interesting to see what Vanderbilt does. Alabama's going to be okay. But again, watch out for Arkansas and Florida and Missouri. And Tennessee. Those are going to be some great teams this year, obviously, with LSU. I hope everybody enjoyed the show today. Tomorrow's show is a bonus show. We're not emailing the show out tomorrow. Just go to where you get your podcast, pull us up. We're going to have the second team, all Louisiana team South for the defense. We're going to talk about all the recruits. And some of these kids aren't recruits. I just think they deserve being mentioned because of their talent level and watching these kids play. It'll be a long show. And then Wednesday, we're going to have our guest, a former punter from USL, will be joining us. Thursday, we'll have our third team, all Louisiana South offense, high school football players. And then Friday, Coach Watney from Catholic in New Iberia. Again, be sure to go at our website, lafootballmagazine.com, and I hope everybody has a great Monday and a great week. We'll see you Tuesday. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brecheen.